Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Let's Play here on my channel. This is an extension or an expansion, if you will, of the Chicago Cubs world. We're going to be taking over the Nashville Blues, and you can see a blank screen right now, and that's because I'm a doofus. I recorded the video without my headphones on yesterday and didn't realize I had a video playing in the background, so there is audio over my audio. So I am going to do my best to re-speak throughout the course of the video, with this being the first video, guys, and with me being just a giant goofball. Do me a favor, leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, leave a comment. Let's have the algorithm pick up this Nashville Blues playthrough. And without any further ado, let's get to it. And again, I'm gonna kind of talk over what you're seeing here, so you won't see my entire thought process, but you know, it is what it is. And if you notice the big gray box up in the top, I mentioned that I had recorded this yesterday. I forgot that I left my camera up from the live stream on Sunday, so I put that box because you can only see like the top half of my head. Here's the other expansion team, the Vancouver Beavers. And I'm talking about, I had somebody ask me to change one of the minor league team names to the Savannah Bananas. And I can't, I go through a couple of different screens to try to figure it out. I named the ballpark Cracker Jack Ballpark, which is a tribute to Cracker Barrel and Jack Daniels, both of which are in Nashville. Talking about the ballpark factors here, I used the 3D engine to put together the ballpark, so you can see the distances to left and right. It's a slight pitcher's park. Lefties look like they might hit for a little bit of power, but overall it's a slight pitcher's park. Yeah. So yeah, talking about the ballpark here, ballpark factors, the type of park, the size, that sort of thing. And then again, getting into, somebody had asked me to change one of the team names to the Savannah Bananas, and I can't remember how to do that. So you can see I'm messing around here, and I change the major leagues to AA and go, nope, that's not what I want to do. And then I go back and I just give up and say, if you guys know how to do it, tell me how to do it. So if somebody knows how to change the team name for one of our minor league squads, let me know in the comments below. I created the Memphis Kings. Again, just going through the remaining minor league teams. I created the Memphis Kings. Figured Memphis was a big city in Nashville or in Tennessee, and the Kings, Elvis, Memphis, the Kings, the Memphis Kings. So that's kind of where we went from there. And then I think from here we just go right into. Oh, right. I think this is where I start talking about kind of the team organization. So I went into commissioner mode. And I got rid of all of my coaches. I didn't fire them because my thought process was as a new general manager, I would want the responsibility to hire all of my own people. So I moved everybody. I went into commissioner mode and I just took them off the team so that I didn't take the financial bump from firing somebody who had multiple years left on their contract. And I just spent some time here going through my new coaches. You see I hired a highly favored tools scout who was pretty good. Went after the GOAT, Rick Jameson, and he has no interest in being the trainer for our team, so we signed PJ Mainville, who was kind of the next best option. And then from here we go in and hire a couple of base coaches. I think I end up with Saucedo and Durrington, I think are the two I went after, and I hired them both without looking at their personalities. So we do have some slight personality issues, which we'll kind of take a look at later in the video, I think. But signed Durrington to be our third base coach. So we pick up our two base coaches, and then we go to... Yeah, you can see here I start looking at their personalities, and I'm like, oh, shoot. So one of them is easygoing, the other one struggles with easygoing. And I kind of make that a point to look at whether or not they get along with easygoing players or easygoing coaches as we kind of move forward here. I think the next is, I think we go pitching coach next. Yeah, we go pitching coach next. And I suppose I could speed all this up. You guys don't necessarily need to see any of this. I can't remember who I signed. Again, you see me looking at the personality types. And every coach that I looked at was poor just because I don't have anybody on the roster. So I think I end up going with Justin Garcia here. He's legendary at teaching pitching, excellent at development. So I think he's the one we sign. It is. And we go over to hitting coaches. And I spent a little more time here just because there were a couple of options. I don't remember. I think I signed a AAA pitching coach, if I remember correctly. Ty Martin works well with normal, struggles with temperamental. Joel Pacheco. This was the guy I think I was looking at initially. I don't remember if I ended up signing him. Did really well in AAA. I don't know why I was looking at those ERAs, but four straight seasons of at least a 284 batting average. Okay, so it is Joel Pacheco that I signed to be my hitting coach. So you guys are kind of watching this along with me because I don't remember a lot of this stuff. Bench coach now, looking at development. Caballero works well with easygoing. I think he is the pick. He was legendary at handling development. Looked at a couple other names, I believe. Yeah, I think I end up going with Caballero, though. You can't obviously look at lineups and relationships because I don't have anybody on the roster yet. So, yeah, I think we end up going Caballero. I think I take a look at maybe one or two more players, or do I? No, I think we just go with Caballero. Yep. So that is our coaching staff, and we got to look at assistant GMs. And I think I just bring in Theo, if I remember correctly. I think I just bring in Theo. No, I brought in Ryan Dumit. That's who I brought in. Yeah, Ryan Dumit, the former Pittsburgh Pirate catcher, heavily favors prospects, heavily favors power, heavily favors on base percentage, prefers defense, and he worked well with easygoing. So Ryan Dumit, the former Pittsburgh Pirate catcher, is our assistant general manager. And, yep, we were all set there. I went in to make sure that my minor leagues were set to assistant GM because I can't be bothered to hire and fire my minor league coaching staff. And then I think from here we just go right into the expansion draft. Oh, waiver wire, right. We looked at the waiver wire first, and I tried to pick up a couple of players, but it wouldn't let me. It says I put in claims on them, but I never actually got them. So I'm curious if there's something set in the game where you can't pick up players prior to the draft. Because I put in a claim. I looked at Samuel Zavala until I saw his contract and decided against it. I think I put a claim in on Atencio. Bad personality, but just a really good defensive shortstop. I put in a claim on Atencio. Then I went over and looked at, see, my claim was accepted. And then I went over and I looked at pitchers, and I did the same thing. I think I put in a claim on, I looked at a couple of different pitchers who were actually starters. They're just listed as relievers, but like Brylan Polk is a starter with his 60 stamina, former first overall pick. I think I put in a claim on that former number one pick, but it just never went through. Like Jeremy Law's a starter with the 70, but I can't get my own scouting because I don't have any scouts at this point. So I'm just kind of looking at the players based off of OSA. Jeremy Law, that's 75 stamina. I think I put in a claim for Jared Witt was a reliever. Yeah, Polk, I think, was the one I ended up going with, the former first-round draft pick. I'm talking about his ratings here, I believe, if you move him to a starter. Put in a claim on both of them, and it just didn't say anything to me after I put in that claim. Like, I got no information at all. Just sim a couple days at a time here and make sure that all of our scouts, or all of the offers we put in, were accepted, and in the end they all were, which is no surprise. And I think we get to award season here shortly. Yeah, and you'll see in a second right here. Yeah, I go in and I'm looking for those players that I had put in claims on. And now you can see there's nobody in the waiver wire, so I'm not really sure what is going on and why I didn't pick them up. So, I wonder if it's a function of not having anybody on my team. So, or I can't pick anybody up before the expansion draft. And looking at our owner here, you can see tolerant, charitable, hands-off, which is awesome. He wants to make a profit, but that type of owner should give us a fairly substantial budget. And we go into international here. And I bring in Rivas, but I start talking about my plan here instead as I look through some of the starters. I end up going more for quantity over quantity. You'll see I offer Edgar Rojas as somebody I bring in because he only wants $650,000, and then Sergio Mata, who only wanted $250,000. So I bring in both of them. And then I believe I switch over to the hitters here. So, yeah, I end up going quantity over quality. When it's all said and done, you'll see I pick up 2 players. I bring in Wilson Figueroa, and I think that may have been it. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of super high talent in. And again, I'm going off of OSA and not mine because I have no scout at the moment. Or I do now, but, I didn't at the time. Looking at our available pool, we've got $6.5 million. And I was making sure that we had money in IAFA. And I look at our draft budget at $33 million and realize that's absurd. So I bump up our scouting budget to $25 million. I love that as an expansion team, our development budget is already set at nearly $33 million. I'm talking about how fan interest at 100 for an expansion franchise is great. That's legit, I think. Loyalty is poor, but you get that 100 fan interest. And then we start getting into the award ceremonies. Jung-Hoo Lee finishes with a Gold Glove. And I just noticed Casey Schmidt won a Gold Glove with Atlanta as well. Reliever of the year, no surprise, Esmeralyn Vinicio with his 3rd straight, I believe, reliever of the year award. Silver Sluggers. I don't think we had anybody here. We did not. And we get to Rookie of the Year, Mike Riddle of the Astros. And in the NL, Jung-Hoo Lee wins the Rookie of the Year with a really nice first season for the Cubs. 3-year, $10 million contract. It's a nothing contract, and he wins the Cy Young. Manager of the Year, we get to Cy Young's JT Kroner of Kansas City. And Ramiro Mendoza Jr. of the Marlins. 15-6 with a 2.34. And then lastly, Brandy Rosario, shortstop with the White Sox, 292, 38, and 100, wins the MVP. And in the NL, Eric Cheatham. And I'm a little surprised by this. Look at his numbers, 312, 18 home runs, 77 RBI, stole 34 bases. It's a below average left fielder, but put up 6 WAR and wins the MVP. It's a bit surprising. And we don't have any arbitration, so we just sim ahead a bit. And I'd start talking about how disappointed I am here that we get swept in the World Series in our final year. International free agents. We take a look at some of them, but my plan for free agency here in the first year was not to make any big splashes. It was to look for either young international free agents or sign a couple of people to kind of some 1-year style contracts. And that's what we end up doing. We signed a couple of players to short-term contracts. So yeah, the off season itself isn't all that exciting. We have a metric crap ton of money to spend, so that's good. But we didn't make any offers until we get to the expansion draft. And this is the majority of the draft right here. This is 35 rounds. And we get started. And we have the first pick. And I was a little surprised in the amount of talent that was here. You can see we got 370 star or 370 potential players. A lot of them were rated lower by OSA. So my guess is that they're going to be closer to OSA than they are ours. We're going into this with very low scouting across the board. Spent some time looking. There were 4 or 5 players that I was kind of focusing on. Randy Dinsdale was one of them. I think we go to Tim Morgan and Chris Hall. Chris Hall was another one I look at. We go back and look at pitchers, and we end up taking a lot of pitchers who are listed as relief pitchers who are starters, because most of the starters that were listed aren't particularly good. Wasn't impressed by Fleming or Anderson. I was sort of interested in because of the high work ethic, but I didn't want to take him as the top pick. I just realized he was a two-way guy. So we go back to batters. So we were looking at Rivera, Blinman, Dinsdale, and Hall. Those are the 4 players I was looking at with the top pick. And once we get to the first couple of picks, it moves a whole lot quicker. I think we end up, well, I know who we end up going with. We end up taking Blinman with the pick. High work ethic, 23 years old, could play center field. If the contact and gap power is legit, he's a leadoff hitter. He's got the speed for it. They think we should take Sergio Rivera. I didn't take Rivera because I didn't like the contact. So we take Sergio Rivera with our top pick. Or excuse me, no. We take Blinman with our top pick. But this is where we look at Chris Hall. I like Chris Hall because of the I and avoid K. Also a pretty good defensive third baseman. So we take Dougie Blinman. We go to our next pick. I think we end up taking, I think we went heavy offense initially. I think we took 2 or 3 offensive players right out of the chute. But I end up getting them all. I end up getting Hall and Dinsdale. The only one we don't get is Rivera. He ends up going to another team. We take Chris Hall, good defensive third baseman with a little bit of pop. Now it's our next pick. And we take Dinsdale. So we get the 3 offensive players we were looking at. Dinsdale's not a shortstop, but good bat. We now go back to pitchers. And I start a different strategy. I start looking at the stamina for some of these players. Like Juan Moya is the number 50 prospect in the game. He's a starter with that 65 stamina, and I acknowledge that. OSA doesn't like him quite as much, but we take him because, again, that 65 stamina shows that he is actually a starter. And then immediately I start thinking about it and go, all right, well, some of these guys are starters. Like Jim Bennett is a starter. 80 movement, 50 stamina, 3+ pitches. We take Jim Bennett. Go to our next pick. And I'm trying to figure out the draft here. So I was like, all right, so it's a pick for us, then 2 for them, then 2 for us, then 2 for them, and so on and so forth. So it's our pick here again. And I go really cheap. I end up taking Balderas. I don't know if I take him here. I think I do. That's 70 stamina. Again, 3+ pitches. Yeah, so I pick up Balderas. And all 3 of those players ultimately will be used as starters. Batters. I think I start looking at fielding ratings here and grab myself a catcher in this round. Wanted to make sure we had an elite defensive catcher to catch our young pitching staff. I don't remember if it's this pick I take the catcher or not. I end up taking Kevin Kendrick. I don't remember if I take him with this pick. I believe I do. It might be a little bit of a reach, but I wanted to make sure I got a good defensive catcher. Bring up the fact how he played for the Dogs way back in 2031. 75 ability. I just kind of take a look at some of the other players real quick. And we end up taking Kevin Kendrick here, picking up our starting catcher. He's not going to hit, but that 75 catcher ability is elite. I look at some of the other players and go, do I want Alfredo Rodriguez here, or do I want to try to find a different player, or am I getting out ahead of myself? And at this point, I say, all right, I don't need two catchers right now. So let's look at some of the other defensive ratings for some of these other players. I think about taking Mike Harris here because of that outfield range. I end up not taking him here, but I end up getting him in one of the last rounds, which is great because of that defense. I don't remember what I did with this pick, though. So we'll find out together. Tommy Egelhoff, I think, is who I take here. The bat isn't great. It's okay, but high work ethic, 75 outfield range. Yeah, we take Tommy Egelhoff. It's our pick again. And this is where I thought about taking Rivera and saying, all right, let's just take that outfielder now. But I end up looking at Delgadillo. Hit 36 home runs this past season, and I end up taking him. But when I take him and then go to my next pick, Rivera is now gone. So Vancouver picked up Rivera at that point. So now it's just a matter of finding. I think I took Pecchia here because of that contact. I don't think you can pass up that 75 potential contact. He hit 320 in AAA last year with 20 home runs, so we take him. Go back to pitchers. I think we grab a couple of pitchers back to back here. And again, you can see I start looking at stamina and looking for pitchers who have high stamina and multiple pitches. And I find Salen Drew. As a starter, his stuff's probably a 55 or a 60, but he's got 3+ pitches. He pitched in Miami last season. And we take him. I look at Vite just to make sense. Or just to make sure. A couple other players I take a look at just to make sure, but we end up taking Salen Drew. Think about taking Matt Brash again. We end up looking at him, but he's making like $12 million or something, so I passed. When it's all said and done, I don't have a single player on my team making more than like $1.7 million, so we've got a ton of money. And I'm looking at ages. I am not even looking at anybody over the age of 30. We are a really, really young team. Looking for pitchers who actually have that third pitch to go along with the stamina. You can see I just quickly look at anybody who's got high stamina but only has 2 pitches. And then I start to think, well, maybe I think I take Juan Madrid here. Fan favorite, good stamina, good movement, good control, high work ethic. I got to find him again. There he is. I take Juan Madrid, one of my highest paid players. It tells me to take Ernesto Miranda, and I go, maybe. Oh, I just noticed Will Klein. Oh, he's 32. Never mind. I take Sang Hoon Mok, 23-year-old. Again, the control is rough, but if that control can end up at... OSA doesn't like him as much, but if he ends up at 65, 60, 40 with plus pitches, that's a pretty good pick for us, so we take him. Go back to fielding ratings. Spend some time looking at some infielders. Very similar to the draft, right? Like I look at Brooks Lee, he's 31, but very good defensively. OSA doesn't like him as much as we do. I think I end up with Brooks Lee. I don't know that I take him here. Yeah, I don't think I take him here. I just realized Danny McCracken is there. Could have taken McCracken. I think Jamie Shook is where we go here, if I remember correctly. Decent contact, decent gap power. Didn't hit for New York last season, but good defensively on the infield. Good middle infield defense. We take Jamie Shook. Now they want us to take Brad Saylor. Shamela Goo is somebody, I think he ends up being our last pick. I love that infield defense, and he's got a little bit of pop, but I love that defense. I don't take him here, I don't think. Yeah, just looking at some more defensive players. Figure if we can get a bunch of ground ball pitchers, the former Cub, Nate Britt. Figure if we can get a bunch of ground ball pitchers and a really good infield defense, that at least gives us a shot. We go back to catcher ability. I think this might be when we take our second catcher. Can't remember who we take. I wanted to make sure that my second catcher either had a little bit of pop in his bat or was just as good defensively. I didn't want, I'm like, well, maybe I take Ethan Salas. He's got 60 catcher ability, but I don't really want 60 catcher ability in somebody who can't really hit, so I end up not taking him. And then I find Pablo Aliendo, and I think I end up taking him because he's a high leader, high work ethic, high intelligence, has some major league time. Is that who I end up taking here? Carson Bowen I look at. He doesn't hit either. Here it is. I take Adonis Guzman because he's a captain. And I talk about the importance of having a captain. Catcher ability's not great, but he's got that cannon for an arm. So I take Adonis Guzman here. Talk about how important it's going to be for us to have a captain, given that we're probably not going to be a very good team this year. We go back to batting potential, and I think here I start looking for a power bat. Do I do that here? No. Yes, I do. Here we go. Yep, I start looking for some power. Jalen Palmer I look at until I realize he's 32 years old. Probably, in hindsight, could have taken him and would have been fine. G.J. Bassett. Just a weird profile, high contact, but nothing else. We start looking at batting eyes. And I start talking about how it's weird seeing first baseman with high batting eye but low power. And I start looking at Tomaso Aguilar, who... And then I look at his ratings, and I get into how he can't play anywhere other than DH. He's not a first baseman. He's not an outfielder. The bat's not bad as a platoon DH, and I go back to him here. Yeah, as a platoon DH, it's not bad because he can hit righties, but he's unplayable against lefties, so I end up not taking him. So we do a little more scrolling. Looking for somebody who has a little bit of power and a good batting eye. I'm kind of looking at those two categories, the power and eye, this time through the list. Luke Williams looks all right, but again, good against righties, can't really play against lefties. We go back to contact, and I go, all right, Kevin Patterson's the guy. If he is actually a 70-75 guy, you can't pass up on an opportunity like that to bat someone like that in the 2-hole, so I take him. Mike Sechrist, the former Cub, I think I take him right away without even thinking about it. I do. And then I start looking at what I need, and I go, all right, I've got a handful of outfielders. I've got 5 outfielders. 6 pitchers, so I think I go back to pitchers here. Grab a couple of pitchers. And I start thinking, all right, well, just because he has good stamina and only 2 pitches doesn't mean I shouldn't take them. We need relievers too. So I take a couple of relievers here, I think. Look at Nazier Mule, but I don't take him because of how much he's making. I think I take Josh Brown. Again, another starter. That 80 stamina, potential 65 control. And I talk about even if OSA is right and he's 50-50-50, that's still a back of the rotation starter, especially for an expansion team. Jeremy Beasley had 3 good pitches, but he was 37. Vertus Dye is another one. High work ethic, ground ball pitcher with potential 70 movement. I think we grab him here. Pitched in Double-A for the Red Sox. He's 26. We take Vertus Dye. I think we take Jeff Edwards as well. Yep. Let's grab a couple of bullpen arms. No elite bullpen pieces. Domingo Feliz is another player we look at. I think I take him. Good stuff, good movement, 4+ pitches. He's hurt, but he's out for 9 months. No, we don't take him because he's out for 9 months. That's right. Thought about taking him. Jaheim Hardnick, no. Start getting into that. I don't remember who we took and when. I think we take Medina here, actually. Has that 75 circle change. That intrigues me, so we take Medina. And I look at just infielders here. I think I take Juan Arroyo. Yep. Grab a couple of infielders. I think I take Bleckley because he's a 2-way guy. I mean, he's not a very good 2-way guy, but I think I take Bleckley here. Yep. And I think we should take Jamie Evans. I look at David Ramirez, prospect who can play the infield. I take him. He's only 21. Grab him. And I start to question how many rounds this is. I think it's only 25 rounds without realizing that it says right there that it's 35. So I'm like, oh, I'm making my last pick here. And so I make a pick, and then it keeps going. And then I realize in the bottom right-hand corner it says 35 rounds. So I take another player here saying, this is my final pick. I think we end up with both Michael and Moreno. And then I go, wait a minute, why am I picking again? And then I go, oh, right, okay, so it says that I've got 35 rounds, and yeah. Angel Gonzalez, I think I take him because the stuff, movement, and the fastball, I do. He's the only 30-year-old on our team. Yeah, right there is where I realize that we've got 35 rounds to go. This is where we look at Mr. Brash, and we see he's making $12 million, and I pass. Joe McPike. Looks like a decent pitcher. Good fastball and a cutter. But I start talking about how the changeup. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. I pass on him, I guess. I have no idea what pick I made here at this point, to be honest with you. We'll find out together, I guess. Take Jeff Green. There we go. All right, from the Yankees. We go back to batters. Look at Tim Morgan, the former Cub. I think we take him. I don't know if we take him here, but I know we take him. Look at Henry Allen, a little bit of power. The work ethic is nice. Luke Papano, the two-way player. Villota, I think we take him. I think we take Arturo Villota. Yep. And I think at this point I'm just scrolling through looking for blue. Looking for blue, looking for green. I don't take Xavier Isaac. I like the power, though. Jesus Miramontes, I don't take him. At some point soon, I realize I need a third catcher. Do I take Santoyo? Yeah, I do. I think I realize here really soon that I need a catcher. I think that might be right here. Yeah. This is where I realize I need a third catcher. So I scroll all the way up and I go back and I look at all the players I've already looked at like 3 times. I don't remember who I settle on. Barella, maybe? 25 years old with the 65 catcher ability. Yeah, that is who we settle on as our third catcher. So we got 3 rounds left. And this is where I realize I had my camera on the whole time. So call myself a dummy, shut it off, and we get back to finishing up the draft here in just a second. Here we go. We get back to the draft. We go back to infield and outfield range. I think this is where I take Mike Harris. So I go, we have 5 outfielders. I need a 6th. We can take Mike Harris here. And we go, do I stay here or do I go back to pitchers maybe? I don't remember what I did at this point. I look at Vega a couple of times because he's a captain, but I end up not taking him. And again, I go back and look at some of the players that I've already... This is where I take Brooks Lee. This is where I take the 31-year-old Brooks Lee. We got 2 picks left. We take that third baseman. They want us to take Deshaun Dupart, who I end up taking because of the home run power and eye. And then our final pick, I believe, is... There's a third baseman that I had talked about earlier in the draft who still is there. I'm thinking about taking a defensive player, but I end up taking a bit of a bat with the final pick. It's right there, Shamela Goo. That's who I end up taking. And that is the completion of our draft. We don't have the AI set it up. And I make a mistake here. Let's see if you can catch what that mistake is when I go in here. What mistake did I just make? The mistake I just made is I put everybody on my 40-man, which I didn't need to do. I had players that were on minor league contracts that should have gone to the minor leagues, but I made a mistake and I put everybody on the 40-man. I set my scout up to scout everybody. I want to look and see how much money we have left. I bump our ticket prices to like $23.50. Figure with fan interest at 100, people should come out. That ends up not being the case, but we have plenty of money. Here's where I look at salaries. You can see we don't have anybody making more than 1.8. Tommy Brown will be our most expensive player next year at 2.2. Then we start looking at free agency, and I am wholly unimpressed by what is available in free agency. I look at starting pitchers, and there's just nothing there. I look at Kassan Evans because he wants 1.7. I end up not offering him. We go look at hitters, and again, nothing I'm super impressed with. Brady House wants a minor league contract. So I say, oh, if he's going to take a minor league contract, I'll give it to him. He's got he's got some pop in his bat. He had a good defensive player. We look at Everson Ortega. We look at just some of the more expensive players, and I go, yeah, we're not taking any of these players. Then I get to Christian Encarnacion Strand, and I go, we need some pop. We need some home run power. He's at 20 plus home runs his last 3 seasons. Let's offer him a deal. He wants 3 years at 7.5. I decide to offer him 10 and then 5. So 2 years at 15 million, 10 million here in the first year, 5 million in year number 2 to play first base and give us a little bit of pop. And just kind of start looking through some of the names that are here. Jeremy Pena had a good season with Houston, but that defense isn't what it used to be. I'm looking for players who have, and this is where we end up taking Atencio. You remember he was somebody I had claimed previously. Here we just offer him a 1-year contract worth 1.9. I'm looking for anybody who isn't fully developed. I click on Jacob Berry because of the home run power. But yeah, I start scrolling through and I start looking for players who aren't fully developed. Anybody who's not fully developed, I at least look at. Cam Collier, I look at him and I go, yeah, he looks okay. Can play first, can play third, has a little bit of home run power, so we offer Cam Collier a contract. We have a lot of corner infielders, so I'll have some decisions to make as we get close to the start of the beginning of the season. And I do the same thing with pitchers. I look for either pitchers who aren't looking for a lot of money or who haven't reached their max potential yet. I offer Costo. He only wants 2.4 million, so I offer him. Look at Jordy Vargas because, again, he only wants 3. And I start looking at Paul Skeens, who we had with the Cubs. He's listed as a reliever. When I go in and I see what he wants, though, I realize that it's more than I want to spend. We come back to him here eventually. Yeah, he wants 5 years, so I move on from that pretty quickly. And I don't think I make any offers to any... I do offer Carlos Gonzalez a minor league contract. He ends up not taking it, but I offer that to him. Gavin Richards, I offer him a minor league contract again because his overall is less than his potential and there's still some potential room for growth. I offer him a contract. We get back into international and make sure we run practice for the players that we had set up. And I think we just sim here up to the winter meetings. Yeah, you can see Carlos Gonzalez doesn't take the contract, which is fine. Delete all the messages. Sim up to December 1st because I want to be able to run practice again. We start getting a lot of emails because the scout starts coming back with updates on all of our players. We go back into internationals again. I start talking about my strategy again. I'm hoping maybe I can pick up Figueroa and then Rojas and Mata. Like, to me, that would have been the ultimate success. Rivas I like, but I don't like the low work ethic. We get to the deadline, and I start looking at potential trade chips, and then I realize that I don't have anybody to trade. Like, I don't want to trade any of the players I just picked up for anybody who's on the block, so we end up not doing anything. But we go and we take a look at it in a minute once we get to the 12th. And we don't even do much in the Rule 5. We'll get there in a second. I think I take a couple of players, but nothing great. lottery results. I did set it up so that we would have the top 2 picks in the draft. I happened to win the lottery, so yay for the Blues. We'll have the top pick in the draft next season, followed by the Beavers and the Dodgers. So the Beavers, I picked that name. I went back and I looked at a history of baseball in Vancouver, and the Beavers was the most common name. It was the name that had been used the most. So we go to batting. What am I looking at here? Why am I? Oh, this is the trade block, right? And I look at Yordan Alvarez. I'm like, yep, $36 million. Pico Armstrong, $23 million. Jacob Gonzalez wants $48 million. Royce Lewis was getting paid $31. Drew Romo. I start thinking about Drew Romo, and then I kind of talk about potentially trading for him. And then I start looking at my list and go, I don't really want to give up any of these players for Drew Romo because the catchers I have are almost as good and likely will hit almost as good. So I kind of go through the list and go, is there anybody here that I would really give up for Drew Romo? And in the end, I just back away and move on. Yeah, I look at my catchers. I go, we got Kendrick and Guzman, both of which are fine defensively, better than fine defensively. So we decide we don't really need Drew Romo. And we sim up to the Rule 5. We pick up Ryan Costo. Fans liked that, so we put him on the 40-man. Continue to sim. And again, this is where putting all those players on the 40-man initially came back to bite me. Because in the end, I actually end up having to DFA players. They don't get taken, but I end up having to DFA them, which kind of stinks. We're at the Rule 5. And there are a couple of players we end up taking in the Rule 5 that we thought about taking in the draft, but didn't. And then I realized Brady House is on the list. I scroll past him and I go, oh, Brady House, why is he on here? So then I put him on our 40-man, which I probably didn't need to do, but I put him on the 40-man. He likely wasn't to get taken, but he's on the 40-man now. I think about taking Guadalupe Varela, somebody I like. I'm sitting here and I'm saying, I'm going to take him. He's a captain, high work ethic, high leader. And then ultimately I don't take him because we already have multiple catchers on our team. We look at pitchers. We end up taking, I know we take Monte de Oca. I loved the control. Again, very low scouting, but really good control. A couple of good pitches. He's popular. Only 26 years old, so I think we take him. Yep. Scroll through the pitchers. I think we take Frausto as well. Only 25, ground ball, high work ethic. We take Mike Frausto. And I think that's the only pick we take. We go back and look at the batters again, and we look at Gavin Richards again. We go back and we look at the batters again. I get hung up on Varela. And I just end up not taking him. And I go through and I'm just not overly impressed. Ben Cook, I stop and I look at. Lomas, I look at. But then I start saying, I mean, I could take these players, but the players I have already are better. So I don't think I take anybody else here. Mike Downs, the former Cub. Yep, and we just complete the draft there. We take a couple of pitchers. I noticed that the draft went 5 rounds, and I noticed that Arizona took 5 players. I'm curious if their roster is worse than ours. We want to sim up to January 1st. So we sign Encarnacion Strand, Collier, and Atencio. So we sign all 3 of them. And this is where I have to start making decisions on my 40 man, because now I don't have as much. Now I don't have any room on my 40 man. So I go through and I look at some of the players. DFA Harris, and I have to DFA one more player to get Collier out there. I look for the lowest overalls. I think it ends up being Brown. No, it ends up being Santoyo, who never should have been placed on the 40 man to begin with, but you know, what are you gonna do? Can't put him in AAA yet, but I do end up putting him in the minors. So we get up through international amateurs, and then I end. I pause things, and I'll kind of get into, oops, drop my phone, get into what that looks like and what the next episode is going to look like here. So now I put them both in AAA, and then at this point I realize that I don't have anybody in my minors, and I go, all right, so do I want to just set it on ghost players, or do I want to go in and sign everybody? So we go back to internationals and we run practice. What I ended up doing, and we'll get back into this in a second, what I end up doing is I end up signing and filling my entire minor league system. I don't let the AI do that. I don't play with ghost players. I end up signing my entire minor league system. I sign, 150 minor league players or whatever. So we are at international amateurs now. So I make the decision to go after Rivas initially, I think. I'm looking at the league interest on both Rojas and Mata is low. So I'm thinking, all right, if I can get Figueroa, Rojas, and Mata, I'll take that. So I just go to Figueroa and I offer him $4 million. Because I want to make sure I get him at a minimum. So I sim ahead until we get an answer from Figueroa. And we get him. So we get Figueroa at $4 million. I don't know where he's going to play. He's not a very good second baseman. I get another scouting report on him, but that bat plays. So now I go back into pitchers, and I'm like, all right, I got a couple $1 million to spend still. I should be able to land both of those players. And I can't remember for the life of me what their names were, which is why I'm going through all of these names trying to find the right ones. And I'm like, is that the guy? And I went, nope. And then I go, okay, there's... So I go back and I just go into my my scouting list. I'm like, all right, there they are. Rojas and Mata. Neither of them are great. Mata only wants $250K, so I offer it to him. And then Rojas only wants $650K, so I offer it to him. We end up getting them both. You guys, I don't think, actually see that. But I end up getting them both. So I end up doing exactly what I wanted to do in international amateurs and signing the 3 players that I had in mind. We didn't get a bump to our expenses, which is fine. And I think this is where I start to think about, I start looking at my depth chart, and I go, all right, I got 4 players in the international complex. I have 40 players on my active roster. I have 2 players in AAA, and I have nobody else in any of my other leagues. So kind of make the decision. What do I want to do here? Do I want to play with ghost players on, or do I want to fill out my rosters? And I go, you know what? I'm going to fill out my rosters, I think. So I start talking about the next episode. The next episode will be opening day. We will play opening day, and then we'll sim April and May offline. I'll come back and I will play June day by day. So that way the following episode will be that 1st July. And now I start looking at demands and start talking about how, I'm going to offer all these players who aren't looking for any money. And as we move forward into preseason and into spring training, a lot of these demands should drop to minimal or to nothing. And I'm going to go in and I am going to fill my roster with minor league free agents. I end up signing like 150 20 overall players. They're just really bad, but that's fine. So, and then we take a look at Vancouver and we see what Vancouver did really quickly. And We look at their roster, and they're a bit older than us. Alex Mooney's probably their best player. I look at his page here in a minute. Starting third baseman, probably their leadoff hitter. Looks like he's all right. But they don't have any power. They've got Woosley Lesby as their big power bat, 60 home run power. Took him from the Yankees. But yeah, not a lot of power. That's what I'm commenting on here. I look at their pitching, and they spent some money on their pitching. They picked up Sademon Parker, who was making $12 million for this year and next. They also picked up Ramiro Catano, which is somebody I was looking at. He's somebody I would have loved to have had. Looking at his ratings, kind of thinking if there's some way I can get him, because he looks pretty damn good. And then they also took, I think it was Hidalgo. No, it was Dario Peralta, making $18 million through this year and next. So they have a couple of pretty good starters in their rotation. And I go to the Cubs. And I go, let's see what the Cubs are doing. And I go, oh, they signed Shohei Ohtani. So the Cubs signed Ohtani to fill their fifth role in their rotation. They moved Cheville into the rotation. Signed Darwinzon Hernandez, moved Alkins into middle relief, which I was a little surprised about. I look at their lineup, and they have ATN on the bench because they brought in Justin Henry Malloy. I just realized they brought back Mikey Romero as well. I didn't notice that. But yeah, ATN they have on the bench, which I questioned. Get back to our team. And I think it's at this point I say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I am going to draft my roster, or I'm going to assign all the players to my minor league system. And when we come back, the next episode will be opening day. And that takes you through episode 1 of the Nashville Blues. Again, I apologize for this being a little janky. You know I'm not the most professional streamer in the world. I do my best. That is the end of the video. And next episode will be opening day and the first couple of months of the season. Guys, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you hanging with me through this chaos. I'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.